Shocking good news about those irresponsible people we call millennials. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, of whom you are one if you are watching this episode, this members-only episode. Thanks for doing that. Gentlemen, new data out shows that millennials are less likely to get divorced than their parents or their grandparents. And in fact, while boomers go along happily divorcing at their lusty pace that they've been maintaining for decades, the millennials actually are late coming to marriage, but once they get there, they've got some stick-to-itiveness. Their marriages tend to be more durable. And Stephen Green, this would all be good news except for the kicker at the bottom of this story that I read that says, you know, people who are highly educated are more likely to get married. The people with less education and therefore less money are less likely to get married, to cohabitate, to live in unstable relationships, and to bear children out of wedlock. And Steve, you know what this means. This means that we have an inequality issue on our hands. What do you think of the latest example of the fact that the rich get all the good stuff while the poor suffer?
Well, what this clearly is, and I'm not kidding here, this has been a running thread of Glenn Reynolds and Instapuna for years now. It's a case of the liberal urban gentry effectively closing the door behind them, just like big business likes to do when they get into bed with big government and create reams of regulations that shut out innovative upstart competitors. We've had declining social norms now for about 50 years or so, and these things are touted. They are encouraged by the liberal gentry. Things like, oh, you know what? If it feels good, do it, and all the rest. Meanwhile, if you look at their actual behavior, what are they doing? They are getting married. Well, they're doing things in the right order. They're finishing school. They're getting married. They're having kids. They're doing all of these things in the correct order, and they're staying married, which are the very things that build not just stable families, but also increase wealth through the generations, because these are the families that last and endure and all the other good things that I think everybody wants their family to do. Meanwhile, telling poor people, hey, you don't have to do what we're doing. We're a bunch of squares. You go be cool. Have a good time. And what they're doing is they are encouraging now, I think we're on our third generation of destroying the family, especially in the cities, where the rate of unwed births for white women is now where it was for black women in the 60s, when Daniel Moynihan, probably the smartest Democrat of the second half of the 20th century, said that the black family was in crisis. And these rates have skyrocketed now for white women and for black women, but only for the poor. So what we're seeing is these liberal gentries shutting the door on competition by making sure that there are generations of poor people who are condemning themselves to poverty and will not compete with the liberal gentry. It is maybe the sickest and probably most on-purpose bit of social engineering since Nazi eugenics, for all I know.
Bill Whittle, I get the sense when Steve was talking, I had this picture, believe it or not, of Archie Bunker in my mind, because there were people during the reign of All in the Family as the leading television show in the 1970s. There were people who were cheerleaders for Archie Bunker because they agreed with what he said. And there were other people who viewed him as kind of a cartoon character and that he was a parody of people who believe what he said. And Steve just gave me this idea that the sort of the liberal elites see the movies and they see the pop stars and the rap stars, and they look at those as kind of cartoon characters, almost to be sort of patted on the head and laughed at, and they amuse me. But those same people have become the trendsetters for those with less education and less resources. We have poor people who are aspiring to be like these folks in the celebrity culture. Am I getting an accurate picture there? I mean, is that what's happening?
No.
I figured it wasn't.
The celebrities are worshipped among the left, and Evan Sayed actually really put the nails into this thing. He said the reason that celebrities are worshipped and politicians are worshipped and media people are worshipped and so on is because they don't go to work, in the sense that people like Archie Bunker do go to work. The idea of getting up and working for someone else 9 to 5 is a sign to the left that you're mentally retarded. I'd put a little more gloss on it, but that's basically how they feel. That there's something wrong with you. You're mentally retarded. You have an actual job, and you work, and you come home, and there's something wrong with you. When smart people can figure out a way to stay in college forever, or can figure out a way to make a living as a Renaissance poetry expert, or whatever the case may be. The one thing that I think was so interesting about what you asked Steve was that basically what this article was saying is poor people don't have enough money to live sensibly. That's the essential takeaway from it. Is rich people are getting married and they're staying married and they're succeeding, and poor people have a higher out of wedlock birth rate and so on. And therefore the problem is that poor people don't have enough money to make the same kind of decisions as middle class people do.
Thus the inequality.
It's the other way around.
That's the inequality. It is precisely the other way around. It is the fact that these people who have made these decisions then go on to become middle class, while the people who make the decisions in the wrong order remain poor or become poor from the middle class. That is the problem. And once we had the courage to start talking to people about this and say, yeah, I know it's nice and easy to believe there's all these institutional barriers to your success, but most all of them are in your head, and they've been put there by people who are determined to make sure that you stay down so that you continue to vote for them. And I really think that's about the only way to deal with it. It's to say, these are the choices that lead to this kind of success, and these are the choices that lead to this kind of failure. You can say that's fine, and you can say you don't want to be a part of that, and it's a free country, you can do whatever you want to. But you can't deny the reality of it, and this is the thing, and they do this all the time. They treat wealth as if the wealth fairy swooped down one night and went to certain doors. Maybe there was like a little secret signal hung out there or something. Maybe doors that had the New York Times on the lintel in the morning. Yeah, and the wealth fairy goes in and goes, ding, you are going to be wealthy, and ding, you are going to be wealthy, and then overflies the nation like the angel of wealth, and basically, yep, ding, I like you, you're white enough, ding, I like you, and this is how the left views wealth. And we encourage it because we use language like, well, we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
No. You haven't been fortunate. You've worked your ass off for 25, 30 years, and you saved money, and you got married. You did the things that make at least a middle class, a comfortable middle class existence possible. And we contribute to it. We use the language of it. You're very fortunate. The disadvantage, virtually all of it is choices, and it is an incredible injustice to people who are in poverty to tell them that they're in poverty because of external, institutionalized, major forces beyond their control that they are absolutely, utterly helpless with. So you might as well just go ahead and hate those people like we do. And by the way, here's your miserable, low-life rent check, and keep voting for us once every 2 years. Yeah. Somebody should just go in there and say, no, you could. I could guarantee you a job right now, and I could guarantee you a management job in a year. Go to McDonald's. Ask for the job, be polite and respectful, get there before your shift begins, stay after your shift ends. After 2 or 3 months, ask the manager if there's any additional responsibilities you can take on for the same price, and you will be president of McDonald's in 3 years, especially in this market. But liberals don't care about the poor. They care about looking like they care about the poor.
You get the sense that that there's a factory somewhere where news stories come in and get screened, and what the people in that factory are responsible to do is find out how the particular facts of a story contribute to the main product of that factory. And in this situation, you think, oh, well, this is a nice story. More millennials are staying married. Well, isn't that good news? And yet somehow, when it comes all the way through the factory, it comes out the other end and says, see, this is another example of income inequality. And it's like, how can we take the story and twist it around to use it as an illustration of what's wrong
Correct.
fundamentally with this country, which is income inequality. And it's over and over. But as Bill was talking just there, I was thinking back through my family tree, and there wasn't a whole lot of wealth in that.
Nope.
And there were a lot of sort of dirt farmer people, dairy farmers, and people who, you know, tilled the soil and worked with their hands, who came to this country with little to nothing in their possession, and somehow managed to not only get married, but have 9 children, remain married for until death did they part. There's a narrative that needs to be retold, and it is not the one that you were told about all marriages that happened before 1960, which is the only marriages that existed before 1960 were women who were trapped in terrible marriages, and they stayed because they had no way of improving their social station if they didn't have a husband to protect them. That's the narrative of the left, that marriage was a burden for women. But in fact, if you look back at society for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, you'll find out that marriage has been the groundwork of society. It has been the foundation of a successful society. It has been the opportunity provided by marriage to create societies where law was the rule instead of domination by one man over another. The whole framework of our constitutional republic is really built on not just the individual person, but the family unit and the ability of that family to be able to work together and to prosper and to work with their neighbors and to thrive and to grow into the next generation that's more successful than that before them. We should applaud these millennials who are sticking with marriage.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I know that there's probably some watching right now who are probably thinking, you know what, the reason why we delayed getting married so long and now I'm committed to sticking with it is because we saw what those SOB parents of ours did to our lives because they weren't willing to make that same commitment. God
Exactly
bless
right.
you, my young brothers and sisters. Stick
Amen.
with it. For Bill Whittle
All
and
three of
Stephen
you.
Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching Right Angle. Thanks to the members of BillWhittle.com for making this possible.
That was a cheap shot that I regret.